welcome to the Gird Up podcast. My name is Charlie Ungemach. I'm the host and curator of Gird Up. If you'd like to help support the work that we do here at Gird Up, preparing God's people for whatever lies ahead, you can do so at www.girdupministries.com/buy us a cup of coffee. You can also click on the link down in the show notes below, and a $5 cup of coffee donation is what we call it. It'll help support the work that we do here and help produce more content just like this. Also, we've got some merchandise on there, mostly stickers right now. We've got some awesome ones on there that you should check out. It's another great way to support the show. Now, we have a guest with us today, Mr. Benni Hugk.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Benni. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Glad to hear it. Now, you are a student at Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary right now. Kind of.
Yes.
You kind of are, you kind of aren't. So, go ahead and explain, if you will, what your special situation is.
So I'm studying here at Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary only for 1 year. Normally students are going here for 3 years to study, and I'm an exchange student from Germany. I study there at the Evangelical Lutheran Theological Seminary in Leipzig. There I do my whole pastoral training. There I already studied 4 years, and so this is my 5th year of pastoral training. When I go back, I have 1 year of studies left and then 2 years of vicar at the end. So at whole, there are 8 years of pastoral training, like here in US. It's just a little bit different, and I'm very glad to spend the whole year here in US.
Yeah. So first of all, it's different that you guys do 2 years of vicaring. Do you know what the reason is? There's a reasoning behind 2 years of vicaring versus 1?
I didn't ask yet what's the reason for that, but it's probably just the practical focus of the pastoral training.
Right. Yeah, more training can't hurt, right?
Yes.
You can always use more training.
Yeah.
Cool. So how did you end up here in the United States studying to be a pastor?
Yeah, that's quite a long story. Well, it's a long story how I get to study theology. It wasn't my plan at first. But when I was studying in Leipzig, a lot of people suggested I should come to US and spend time with brothers and sisters there. And I did also in the past with in general studying theology. I pushed it back for later. Sounds like a good option, but I do it later. And so it came that my first years just passed in Germany. I studied there, and then my mentor came to me after my 3rd years of studies in summer, when I was going to start the 4th year. He was saying, well, if you want to go to America, you should think right now about it, because you shouldn't do that in your last year of studies, and you need around about 1 year to get the preparation done. So right now would be the best time point to think about it. And so I thought about it, and that's how I landed here.
Yeah. So what's the motivation for a German seminary student to come over to the United States to study?
The biggest motivation for me personally was to study with fellow students, because when I started in Germany, I got to know the last students who were studying at the seminary in Germany, but they already were finished with their education. The seminary was quite empty, and so I was the only student who studied. I started studying in 2020. Then in 2021, a fellow student who came here from the US and married a German pastor's daughter, he started studying, and we studied together 1.5 years. And then he stopped studying and was looking for something else. And I was alone again. Not completely, because we had one guest student from another Lutheran church in Germany, which was a great blessing. But nevertheless, for doing homework and the struggles in your study time, I quite felt often alone, and I wish to have more fellow students, and so this is my biggest motivation, to study 1 year with fellow students.
Yeah. So you're the only student in your class, or in the whole seminary?
When I started, I was the only student in the whole seminary, and I can say when I came here to US, it was the same case, that I was the only student. there are big things happening in Germany. I'm very glad that I'm not the only student when I go back, God willing. There's one student or one part-time student signed up for studying when I came here, so last summer. He started studying. Then my fellow student who stopped his training after 1.5 years, he came back and started studying somewhere in the middle of fall. And another friend with whom I was in touch the last 2 years, he also was thinking about studying, and he signed up for starting studying in this month. So yeah, I think in some weeks he will finally start his studies.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. Now, I always think of Germany as being like old school Lutheran, seminaries and things like that. Is that the case? Is this an old seminary or is this a fairly new one?
Well, old depending on what you're looking like, on doctrine, on people, on the building. Let's start with the building. The building is, I think, 5 years older than me. It was built in 1991. And yeah, it is like a GDR building with a lot of concrete, I think is the word. But it's also when it doesn't really look like a church building or a huge church building or like a big school. It's just a small building where a normal family could live in, except there is a huge cross at the entrance or at the side wall of the building. This is the building in Leipzig where I study and where also the congregation in Leipzig meets.
Okay. Yeah. So then, are there a lot of Lutherans left in Germany?
There are Lutherans, not only the Free Church Synod where I come from, there's another Free Church in Germany. So to put it in numbers, I think Germany has about 81 million inhabitants, and our church body has about 1,200 members. And the other Lutheran church in Germany has about people. And then there are big state church buildings in Germany. There I don't really have numbers in my mind, but it is also difficult to say because the state churches contain the name Lutheran, but you really have to see what is in there. Yeah, a lot of publications of the Lutheran state church isn't really Lutheran in their content. So
right.
Yeah.
So what are the teachings of the German state church look like?
Well, to compare it kind of with America, I would say it's like ALCA here in US, Evangelical Lutheran Church of
Evangelical Lutheran Church
of America. They are I think, in a worldwide association together. So, and their theology is kind of the same. It could vary from place to place.
So just kind of like generally like on board with like the LGBTQ stuff, kind of a unionist idea. So there's many different paths to eternal life, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, this could happen out there. Sometimes a lot of politics in there too. Yeah, and especially in the region where I grew up, Saxony, the All Mountains, there you often have pastors who are a kind of conservative, confessional. There it might be maybe more the option that you find also biblical pastors, but it is, you don't know, and it could be quite seldom. Yeah.
Do the free churches face like political pressure or anything like that, or are they kind of left alone?
The political pressure, I would say, was especially in the past, in the GDR, when Germany was separated in two parts, in East and West, from post-war years up to 1990. There, I would say, Christians in Germany had a lot of pressure, and it was very difficult. So what is very interesting to see right now is that the Lutheran churches in East Germany are kind of more conservative and biblical than in West Germany.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, in West Germany you had the freedom, so it didn't really matter if you are in the church or if you are out of the church. It's a kind of cultural thing. People are fine with being in church or outside of church. It doesn't matter. But in East Germany, you was more thinking about, do I really want that pressure? Maybe that's the wrong way to look on it, but you had as a Christian, you know the motivation why you are in church, because you have the message which surpasses all eternal, which surpasses all earthly pressure, which ends in heaven. And so that's why Jesus made us free. So I want to belong to Jesus. Yeah, and if you weren't sure about your belief, then you probably stop to go to church and don't put yourself under the pressure.
Interesting. So the pressure from like persecution kept the doctrine pure and kind of kept people, the people that were going to stayed strong in their faith. Is that what you would say?
Yes, I would say that in general. It seems to me that it is often like that. There is physical persecution. People are often very, very confessional in their belief, very conservative, sticking to the Bible, because they know what the Bible truths are and what worth they have when they are under pressure. Yeah.
Now, you come from an area that was a part of West Germany, though, right?
No, I'm actually coming from a part which is part of East Germany. So I grew up in the Free Church, Evangelical Lutheran Free Church, ELFK is the shortcut we use. So I grew up in a conservative biblical free church, which is very happy about the insights Luther had in his life. We are sharing that with a lot of people, and we value that treasure we got through the Lutheran theology, and are very happy about that. And so I grew up in East Germany, and what I wanted to say was our church body is also mostly in East Germany. There are only few places in West Germany where we are reaching out to right now.
So I can imagine, like, I've never been in your shoes, I can imagine that it would be a lot easier to just kind of like go with the flow and be a member of the state church. And like, I mean, the gospel still is preached in some form, right? Often, like you have a Bible that you can go read. Why be an independent church and go kind of against the flow? Like, why take the pressure on when you don't need to, and be confessional Lutheran when there are churches you can go to where that doesn't really exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, especially when I grew up, I doubted a lot of things in my teenager years. I think that's kind of normal, what you do as a teenager. But yeah, especially when my parents, they switched to the state church, and that made for me a lot of troubles, because I wasn't sure where I should orientate myself to. There I thought a lot about it, and then, yeah, I just was happy about what I have learned in that church and catechism class. Yeah, that this church body wants to proclaim the Bible truths like they are in the Bible and put nothing away from it. I probably would say way too much if I say one of the last people in Germany who are confessional. I would say there are a lot of Christians in Germany too who are believing also what the Bible is saying, and they have good insights or good knowledge in their Bible too. Especially we are just taking a lot from the insights of Luther, which we just like it was in the past, because we know which treasure is in there in the theology of Luther, for example. Yeah, election. Yeah, how to call it, predestination. Yeah, that's a great treasure to see in that. Well, it's all about grace. What Luther said 500 years ago, and so we aren't the only Christians, and especially as I would say, second generation guy in in this part. I think a lot about it. Okay, how is the relation with other churches? How should we interact with other churches? I think I lost my thread or my thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So you keep talking about the treasure that is the Lutheran confessions.
Yeah.
Right? What are you holding on to that you're not finding? What are you holding on to in your free church that you're not finding in the state church?
Yeah. It definitely starts with the doctrine of inspiration of the scriptures, where God shows already to through the Apostle Paul to Timothy that all scripture is God breathed, and also Peter, the one of the disciples of Jesus, he says you should keep that like a light which is shining in the darkness. And so the Bible as the only and solid foundation for your belief. You don't find that as a not clear in the state church. There are pastors who are proclaiming that, but when you are looking in official documents, they deny the Bible and also the Lutheran confession writings, where we are still subscribing them as biblical, that they are taken out of the Bible and explaining what the Bible is saying, adding any new doctrines, but still keeping what the Bible is saying.
What's it like being one of the few? I mean, recognizing you only got like 1,000. I mean, we call ourselves a small church body, right? And we are. 300,000 members is a small church body, both worldwide and in the United States. Like, kind of across the board, that is pretty small. We have some brother and sister synods here in the United States who are even smaller than that, 10, 12,000 members. Those are small, but yours is even smaller, and kind of lost in a sea. There's at least other Lutherans around, right? Like there are Missouri Synod Lutherans around. There's confessional Presbyterians who are pretty darn close to the same things we believe and different things, right? That's not the case over in Germany, right? At least not quite the same way. So you guys are isolated in a way, I think, and push back if I'm wrong. But you guys seem to be isolated in a way that we don't really experience in the U.S., at least spiritually. What's that like?
I probably would push a little bit back to, like I said, there is another Lutheran church. Compared to whole Germany with 30,000, they are also not very big. And it is the church which is in fellowship with the Missouri Synod here in U.S. And I would say we also are very happy about our worldwide association with the WELS here in U.S. And also when we are a small church body, we are appreciating especially to know at first that God has his church all over the world, and also when we don't count it on church bodies or on people who are in this or that church. Jesus knows his sheep. That's the comforting truth, nevertheless, I think, for every believer. And then, especially the Worldwide Association, Confessional Evangelical Lutheran Conference is our worldwide association which connects the ELFK in Germany with the WELS here in US. And so what is it like? Like I said, our church or our congregations in Germany are especially in the eastern part where the GDR was, and we are very close to each other. Most of the congregations, when I live in Leipzig in Germany, most of the congregations I can reach in 1.5 up to 2 hours. And so we have a lot of church events together as a whole church body. There are like singing weekends 2 times a year. People who like to sing come together from all the congregations. There are a youth retreat or 2 youth retreats also a year, where all the teenagers from our church come together for a weekend. youth choir, which is meeting much more often. I think right now 6 times a year, and who is meeting like in different congregations for bringing joy to the people and sometimes doing also some outreach. And there are a lot of events all over the year which shows a close connection between the congregations. And also when we have small congregations which are normally, I would say, like an average attendance of all congregations might be between 40-50. Also when it is that small, we feel somehow close together because it isn't far to drive to get to the next congregation.
Yeah, you really get to know the people you worship with, I imagine.
Yeah. For me now as a student, but also as a student, also as a person who grew up in the ELFK and already got around to a lot of congregations, I know most of the people somehow which are coming regularly to church or to church events. Yeah, it's really amazing to see them again and to celebrate.
That's wonderful.
Them, yeah.
And you have something really important and really bold, frankly, in common, right? Is that you've made, like, this is spiritual life is important enough to you to have made some sort of sacrifice to be here, right?
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. I gotta say, Benny, you are one of the happiest and most joyful people I've ever met in my entire life. You always got a smile on your face, even when you don't have a smile on your face. Like, you can tell you're fighting to have a smile back on your face. Like, every morning, I don't know how. Sometimes you even look like you just rolled out of bed and you got a smile on your face. I've never seen anybody sign emails. You often sign your emails even with the theme of the week and things like that, and there's always scriptural encouragement. Why is that?
Yeah, why is that? Somehow there is a huge hope which God planted into my heart since baptism. He said, "You are mine." What is really special in Germany, we have, that's just a side note, we have for baptism, every child gets like a Bible verse, and mine is in Revelation 3:8, I think. It says something like, okay, I opened the door in front of you, and no one can close it. You just have a small power, but yeah, I opened the door for you. So a small power which is still doing his work. And yeah, like God's word says, God planted a hope in my heart, which just motivates me every day to go further. And yeah, there are also a lot of days where I'm not really feeling like I want to go. And for me, it is such a joy just to meet brothers and sisters in faith. And also when I have a bad day, I'm getting very happy very easily if I just meet my brothers and sisters in faith.
Yeah. When you do have a bad day, obviously it is a wonderful blessing to be encouraged by brothers and sisters. When you do have a bad day, how do you turn it around?
Well, I wouldn't say I turn it around. I can get lost in my negative thoughts very easily. Somehow, God knows to change it. Like I said, it makes me very happy just when I meet brothers and sisters in faith. Somehow there is a switch in my head, and then I'm happy again to see them and to see what their lives are about, and I just want to encourage them. They, without knowing, encourage me, and yeah, it's maybe just that God encourages me through my fellow believers. Yeah, in a way, they are Jesus for me, and I am Jesus for them, knowing that, yeah, Jesus, who lived 2,000 years ago, he's still with us, and he promised that he will be with us and that he gives his Holy Spirit, and with his Holy Spirit, an abundance of blessings with it. So yeah, which includes joy and happiness and confidence and hope, so that there isn't I should remain sad or despaired or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Why Why did you decide to become a pastor?
Yeah. Okay. Now I have to tell the story. So I would start with, I just enjoyed my catechism class in the past. And when I was confirmed in 8th grade, I remember there was youth retreat in Schönfeld. There was the seminary presented from the students who were studying back then. And there it was the first time that I was thinking about, seminary, that seems like a good possibility. Somehow I know that I sat with tears in my eyes and in the pew back then, and somehow I wanted to share God's word. But like I already mentioned, I pushed it back. It was the same time when I was thinking about, why I am in school here. I don't want to learn for anything where I not really know where I'm going for sure. And so it was 8th grade when I decided, I will finish school after 10th grade. Also when I was on a school, which is normally going up to the 12th grade, and then you normally are going to study. But I decided, I stop after 10th grade with a normal degree, and then I start like a trade job. I wanted to work somewhere in trade. And when I spoke with my parents about that, my father said, well, yeah, I'm working in a drugstore. It's kind of pharmacy, pretty similar to Walgreens. Also, when the medicine is like free, you can grab it in normal shelves, and the education is much more less than in a pharmacy. So I only had to do a 3-year apprenticeship for that. So I did that, and after the 3 years, I got to choice. Do I stay in the job or do I do something else? I wasn't unsure, so I stayed in that job. The company gave the possibility to offer me for some time interest and to stay in the company. And all over the time, the question came back, what do I want to do with my life? My colleagues at work asked me. I said, well, I don't really know. Do you have a suggestion? Well, a lot of people suggest to me that they see me somehow in church, because I also was starting interacting in my free time with the church.
Acting, huh?
Yeah. Well, interacting.
Oh, interact with the church.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I just used my free time, because after my apprenticeship, I was only in part-time, 25 hours a week. So I had a lot of free time. I also had some responsibilities at church, to lead the choir, the press choir, part of a creativity circle, then still in the youth group, and then Sunday the service. So I was a lot around with the congregation, and I enjoyed that. And so people were just telling me what they are seeing. You are doing a lot with church, so why not become an organist or a pastor? I said, well, maybe. And yeah, I worked after my apprenticeship 2 years in Dresden, and then they said, well, we don't really have a place for you in Dresden. So whether you decide to become something else, or you have to change your place.
Which would mean then starting another internship for something else?
Well, yeah. Another internship, or if I want to stay in Dresden, I had to start a new job, another internship, or just to switch to another company which are taking me, probably paying under the normal price or under my education. I was unsure, and then I heard, there's a new branch opening in Torgau in Saxony, and I was thinking, well, I don't really have a clue, but one thing I wanted to get out of my parents' house with that time. It was, like I already mentioned, my parents switched to the state church, and for some years I could bear the troubles, but especially in this winter before I switched, there I really had a downtime. So I decided to stay in the company and in this drugstore, but go to the new branch which is opening in Torgau. And then I was, for my own, not really a congregation from our church nearby, so I had to go 1 hour by train to Leipzig or to Jüterburg, a little bit more to Dresden, or with the bike, 40 kilometers, like 2 hours.
Like a bicycle?
Yes.
Oh boy.
With a bicycle, 2 hours to the south, to Nerchau. So I had 4 options where I go. To church, I switched around. But otherwise, I stayed all the time over the week in my apartment in Torgau and tried to make new contacts there, which I really like. I like to go to meet new people, to make new connections, and also speaking about Jesus. Somehow I did this there. And when I was living 1 year in my apartment in Torgau, I was thinking, well, now I really should get to what I want to do. So after 1 year, did an internship in a kindergarten to experience that. This was one thought which I maybe wanted to do, but wasn't sure. And in the same summer, I visited in Sweden, in Ljungby, 2 families, which I already knew, but connected this with a pastoral education week in Sweden. And there I met a missionary from Russia, whom I met 1 year before that. And he was the only guy, well, he was one of the 2 guys I knew for sure, but there was no other German there. But when we were studying there, he said to me, "You fit really well in this team. You should think about studying theology." I went back to Germany after this week, went back to work, and was confronted with all the questions in my life which I had before. Why do I separate trash, and which matter, which effect has my life in this world? And a lot of questions arose, and I was really unhappy. I couldn't really enjoy anything on this world because I am a kind of minimalist. Don't want to possess a lot. Kind of also struggling with all the pain on the earth. Yeah. And questions like that. Then I called my pastor in Leipzig, and he just gave me a few simple answers from the Bible, showed me Christ again, and one of the passages he says was, "Everything has worth which is received with thanksgiving from God." So I can enjoy things. And I was thinking after this conversation, okay, if the Bible has answers for my life, which don't solve every problem on this earth, but definitely shows me Christ and put the problems in the right spot, then I want to do this as a full-time job to show others the Bible and God's great truth. And then I wrote a letter to the seminary and said, I'm right now here in Torgau. I want to start next year studying theology. Would it be possible to restart the seminary, which was empty at that time? Yeah. And they just took me.
That's awesome. So you literally said, like, hey, I know there isn't really a seminary right now, but would you restart it for me?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew that. I asked for.
Okay. And now you're here.
And now I'm here, which is huge thing.
Do you miss home?
No.
Okay.
No, not really. Like I said, since my parents switched to the state church, I became more and more independent from my family and felt more and more connected to my brothers and sisters in the ELFK. And when I came here to US, I just know, okay, there are brothers and sisters in faith too. Also, when I don't really knew anybody here, I just felt welcome from the first day. And so, no, I don't miss home.
That's awesome.
But I said I go back to Germany, so I will keep to that.
Well, there's something to be said for serving your own people, right? like this is where I came from. This is what I know. This is who I know. I can see myself someday doing mission work even outside of the U.S. But there's a big part of me that says like these are my people. This is where I come from. I know these people. I love these people. I want to be among these people, and I want to be the one that brings the gospel to these people too. There's something to that.
Yes, I really get that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the same.
Well, what do you like about being in the U.S.?
What do I like? Especially being here at the seminary and to learn more about the wells and all the ministries, all the places. Last week, for example, I was in Appleton to see the core, which has a lot of internet outreach under the name Time of Grace.
Time of Grace, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot of videos already of them in Germany before I came here.
So it's kind of like going to see your heroes, huh?
Yeah, yes, kind of, yes. I met Mike Nowotny.
He's a great dude, isn't he?
He is.
He's,
yes.
Yeah, he's been on the show a couple different times. He's a sweet, sweet man.
Yeah.
And when like one, I know a bunch of people who are members there and who are even like on his team and things like that. And he's a good leader of his congregation. But beyond that, even when like his personal relationships, he does a good job. Like nobody's perfect, right? And you can't put anybody on too high of a pedestal. But he's a great example of somebody who happens to be doing a very special ministry, but that very special ministry does not define him.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that it's easy to have all that attention. It's a lot of scrutiny on your life. It's a lot of attention that doesn't really have anything to do with what your work actually is.
Yeah.
And just in my observation, he handles that really well. And he really is a good friend and a good, like, we're not real tight. I'm not saying that. But he truly is like a man who shepherds his flock. And his flock is a little different than most. And he shepherds in a different way than most pastors are going to.
Yeah.
But he does, in my experience, does a wonderful job of, I guess, plowing his own field, if you will. Right? This is where I am. This is what I've been asked to do, and I'm going to do it faithfully.
Yeah. And what was really interesting for me, in a way, I knew it already before I came to US, but especially when I was there in the place, to see, okay, they have a lot of pastors there who are kind of sharing the work. So he does especially the Sunday morning services, the sermon. Other pastors are caring about other areas of the ministry, and it is just nice to see how well it fit together. And everyone is doing his task. Everyone is just following his calling, and humbly doing their work with great joy. Yeah,
and it doesn't matter what you do or where you do it or how you do it. Somebody's always going to criticize. It's sinful nature. There's always going to be criticism. And how you deal with that criticism and whether or not that criticism is merited by your behavior is really all that you can control. Like, you can't control where the criticism is coming from. You can't control what the criticism actually is. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And like, obviously we don't want the criticism to be legitimate, right?
Yeah.
Like if there is something genuinely going wrong or whatever, like then criticism is different. But your ability especially as a leader of Christians, your ability to take the criticism in stride and just continue faithfully going about your work is a really unique and wonderful blessing.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to learn also more about leadership, especially here in Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary. Right now, taking a course about leadership, and I think it is an area where I would say naturally, I'm not made for that. But yes, nevertheless, I now have the possibility to grow in that. And to see, okay, God changed so many pastors to lead his flock faithfully. just like Christ did it, or well, Christ did it much more, but yeah, just to see, okay, God is doing that with his people. It's amazing to see.
And everybody's got a weakness too, right? Everybody's got a weak spot.
Yeah.
So you have guys that are great leaders, but they're not particularly empathetic, right? Or you have guys who are great speakers, but they're not necessarily great with the languages or with the dogmatics part, right? You have guys who are wonderful, wonderful counselors who can't preach on Sunday morning. They struggle, right? Everybody's got weak spots. The question is, one, can you I guess arrange things in such a way so that your weaknesses aren't cumbersome, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, your weaknesses aren't going to overwhelm your strengths. But on the flip side of that too is, do I trust that my Heavenly Father can use me anyway?
Yeah.
Right? Do I trust that the Lord knows what He's doing when He gives me these tasks? And can I just go ahead and do them anyway?
Yeah.
And trust that the Word is going to do what He says the Word is going to do, and it's going to be powerful and effective. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a kind of theme today in the service. I was in Christ Alone down the hill here. A nice sermon about Jesus, who was saying to Peter, well, I preach now, but yeah, you can now go by boat on the sea or on the lake and throw your nets out and fish a lot of fish. And Peter, he tried the whole night, and didn't catch any fish, and knows as a fisherman what would be the right time to do it. But yeah, he humbly trusts Jesus and his word. At the end of the sermon, the pastor said something like, okay, Peter was then a huge blessing, called from Christ to catch fishes. And Peter was a fisherman, but it don't really have, Peter is Peter and you are you. So it doesn't matter who you are, Christ is using you. And he is giving you what he wants to accomplish with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And the wisdom of God is the foolishness of the wisdom of men. You know what I'm trying to say.
The wisdom of God is foolishness for men.
And the wisdom of men doesn't even reach God's foolishness.
Yes.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And he knew what he was doing when he calls us to the work that's ahead of us also.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your, just generally, what are your impressions of the U.S.?
What are my impressions of the U.S.?
You hadn't been here before, had you?
No, it's the first time when I arrived on August 15th, U.S. Like I said, I felt welcomed the first days here. And in general, I don't really have problems to fit in a new environment. Maybe because I wasn't in too bad places yet, which is a huge blessing, but that might be one reason why I just feel comfortable with it. Yeah, I often saw a lot of similarities. I have a lot of orientation, so there isn't too many differences, I would say.
Okay.
Well, the picture
That's interesting.
Yeah, the picture of the street looks different. It's much more wide space. People are living much more outspread in Germany, especially in the historic grown cities and villages. People are living much more compact to each other. One big difference which I recognized in the first days was, okay, here in US, you use a lot of things only one time and then throw it away. That's a thing which is very forced in Germany, not to do that. Especially in my apprenticeship, that was one of the big themes, to use things many times and to just be environmental carefully with.
What kind of stuff are you what kind of stuff caught your eye?
The plates, for example, you use only one time and throw them away. They are already forbidden in Germany. Yeah. Also like plastic knives, plastic forks. Also, what you use to drink out of a cup, the
straw.
The straw, yeah. They are in Germany forbidden, and a lot of people went crazy in the past about because they said, Well, this little thing should help us to get more environmental friendly, or yeah, more conform to the environment. But yeah, when I'm here in US, I understand why people are thinking that, and so yeah, one of the first things when I was in the store here, I bought some towels and hang them in the bathroom, and I use them a couple times, and then at the end of the week I wash them, because that's just one thing where I don't want to use a paper towel every time.
Yeah, that's fair.
So these are differences. In church, I would say the general structure of this follows the same structure that we have in Germany. Some differences are there. For example, using a whole psalm song. We have a so-called introitus, which is like an introduction based on a psalm verse, but it's often just six sentences, or yeah, something like that. And the creed.
Well, and that psalm singing is actually a pretty recent development, even in the U.S. Like even in our church body, it was the 1994 hymnal project that like really kind of brought what we think of as hymn singing in our circles back to life. And even that is a pretty modern adaptation of what it looks like to sing psalms.
But I really like that. So in Sweden, they have it in the same way. And I like to sing a refrain and then to have like a psalm tone you sing on, with some notes where you sing a lot of words on the same tone. What I realized is there are like modern chords and modern harmonies. It's not the classical one we have in Germany. I just would be happy with having a refrain between the sad sounding, a kind of sad sounding psalm tones in Germany. But yeah, it's just a little thing where I'm happy with the psalm singing here in US. And yeah, another thing is that the creed here in US is after the sermon. In Germany, we have it before the sermon, and then there's a song between it. Yeah, we have quite more songs in Germany. Yeah, and one big thing is that a lot of churches here in US have Sunday Bible class directly after church or between their services. In Germany, you have it under the week somewhere, Wednesday, Thursday. That's the typical time for it. And yeah, that was new to me too. Oh. Yeah. And yeah, that there is like a big connection between schools and churches. So I personally grew up in a public school. My parents just taught me Jesus, where I'm very happy and grateful for that. And like I mentioned, we have catechism class in our church. And we had a special status for that, because as such a small church with 1,200 members, we got the permission to teach our children in religion according to our church.
So you had to get permission from the government to teach catechism classes?
Yes, in our church. Not in schools, okay. But yeah, in our churches. And we can do this instead of the religion or ethics class in school.
So there is a religion and ethics course in public school? Yes. And that's related to the state church then?
Well, the religion class, sometimes I would say it's done by state church pastors, or maybe especially or special educated religion teachers.
So it's not necessarily like a word of God class. It's more like learning about religion.
Yeah, so it really depends. It's kind of same like with the state church. In a way, it depends on the teacher who is standing in front there. And my parents said, I'm not sure who is standing there in front of you, so we want to send you to our church and to do the religion class there, the catechism class. Was very happy about that. I can remember one time I visited an ethics class in 3rd grade because it wasn't a school class at the end or at the beginning of the day, so I couldn't really go home. So I visited there, and it was just about luck and the definition of luck. And yeah, another class we spoke about just religions in general, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and their holy books. And like it is today, they are just placed next to each other without saying any deep.
Just kind of options you can choose.
Yeah, something like that. It's just more informal. It was very open, and I think teachers in public schools are or don't have the permission to influence children in a religious way. So they just have to do it informal, and yeah, so it really depends where what the teacher is saying and where you are going with that as a child. But we got the permission to teach and still have the permission to teach our children in our churches, and this instead of the state school religion and ethics class up to the 10th grade. And yeah, so people are very happy about their catechism class they get in our churches.
Yeah. So it's not something that happens during the school day.
It's
the ELFK class.
Yes.
Is that something that happens during the school day?
It's somewhere in the school week on an afternoon. I have 4 siblings, so my parents just collected us as siblings after school in their big car, drove to Dresden to our church, and we stayed there the whole afternoon. Had at different times different catechism class, and the rest of the time we spent with the pastor's family or with my grandparents who spent time at church at this day. And so yeah, it was a really, really nice event, and I have a lot of good memories, especially staying with the pastor's family, doing some creativity stuff there or playing with the other pastor's children. Yeah, it was a really cool time.
Yeah. So you're one of 4, or you have 4 other siblings?
I have 4 other siblings. I'm the 4th of 5.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 sisters at first. The oldest has already two sons. Then an older brother and a younger brother. All of them are married. And yeah, my youngest brother, he also got a son at the beginning of January.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So you're Uncle Benny, huh?
I'm Uncle Benny now for the 3rd time. Yeah.
But you're not married.
No, I'm not married. Yeah, I'm still, let's say, single. And yeah.
Do you want to get married?
If the Lord gives me a wife, yes.
Do you think you have to give to Paul?
Sometimes I was thinking that, but people showed me often, well, maybe you shouldn't believe that.
I've had a couple people suggest it to me, and I do not. I don't. I'm just looking for the right girl. And that's not an easy thing always to find, especially when you're studying to be a pastor, like when you're preparing for that, and then also when you're preparing for that and not like at normal high school, college level. I think sometimes people take it for granted within like the ministry schools. I think they take it for granted that it's a little bit easier to do that when you're both starting life kind of together at the same time. And you'll even hear people talk about sometimes like a couple will be engaged or they'll be like getting close to an engagement and they'll break up because they don't want to like do the year apart that it would take for them to finish out school or whatever it might be. And that just blows my mind. Like 1 year is nothing. You can do anything for 1 year, you know? And the idea that 1 year is enough to just kind of like throw the whole relationship away, including all of the potential of a future relationship. I mean, I guess in some ways, if you're willing to break off the relationship over that 1 year, then maybe you don't want to be with that person for the long term, right?
Yeah.
If that was all it took. But at the same time, like I think the really young people, I I think it's wise and beneficial to get married young.
Yeah.
And that ship has kind of sailed for us, right? We're not old, but that ship has kind of sailed for us, right? Like it's too late for us to get married really young.
Yeah.
At the same time, like I would rather be by myself than with somebody that I shouldn't want to be with or somebody that isn't supportive of the life and lifestyle that I'm pursuing. Like I want to do this. Like this is what I want to do with my life. And this is like the way I frame it often is I know where I'm trying to go and I know what it's going to take to get there. And if you want to come join me in that, you are welcome to do so. Like, come on board. Let's do this. But if you're not sure, or if you're not sure, hang out for a while and figure out if you're sure or not. If you're pretty sure that you don't want to do what I'm like, if you don't want to live that life, you don't want to make those sacrifices, that's fine.
Yeah.
The Lord in His time will provide me the spouse that I need, and I would rather be by myself, faithfully serving in whatever capacity it is that I've got at the moment. Frankly, deal with even when you are on board, when two sinners get together and become one flesh, there's just always going to be some hardship and some difficulty and some strife because we're sinners.
Yes.
It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how good your marriage is, at some point there's going to be some challenges. Why put yourself in a situation where there's going to be even more challenges than that? I'm not saying run away from challenges.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, why would I put myself in a position where you got a pretty good idea going into the relationship that the fact that I am, serving in ministry this way, or I am willing to make these kinds of sacrifices, if I know that's going to be an issue for the relationship, why would I knowingly stack that on top? You know what I mean? The other thing is, like, I don't need a woman to be like the pastor's wife, Like, I'm okay if she wants to have her own, like, you don't need to be a teacher. You don't need to play organ every Sunday. You don't need to do any of that. I don't need any of that. You just need to be a faithful member of the church and support the work that I'm going to go do. And it's not as easy to find that as I think I thought it was going to be. And a lot of other people seem to not realize how difficult that can be to find sometimes.
Yeah. I would say I'm just in the starting process. I had over Christmas a good time with the in-law family of a fellow student, and over New Year I spoke with the host mom there for hours, and I really needed that time because I didn't do that with my parents in the past, not often, and so there were a lot of things which were going on, a lot of struggles in the past where I never spoke really with people about that. So yeah, in a way I would say I wasn't ready for a relationship, and now I'm right now in weekly phone contact and to work through such problems.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I thought you were weekly phone contact with the girl. I was gonna
yeah, just to work on this,
like some counseling and things.
Yes, while counseling I also took before that, but it's really just to speak with the host mom, and she's helping me with just things like communication and just reflecting my thoughts and just asking questions, and helps me to think through things.
She's mothering you a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I really need it.
Yeah. And it's cool. Like I said, counseling, it doesn't have to be like a formal thing, right? Yeah. Like, and I don't know what it's like over in Germany. I think as Americans, we're kind of like, I don't want to say addicted to counseling, because that's not quite right, or to therapy or whatever. We think that therapy solves all of our problems. It just doesn't, right? It's never going to change our nature. We're still going to have our sinful nature.
Yeah.
And we weren't made to need therapy, right? Therapy is a good and wonderful thing. And there are some of us who are very well served. Like, I personally have been really well served by really good mental health therapists and things like that. And I've loved some people that have also. At the same time, historically, you didn't have a city therapist like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
You had people that you did life with, and you talked to them, and you
Yes.
shared with them, and you shared your burdens, and that was even part of being a part of a church community. You share those burdens, you have those conversations. I don't have numbers to quantify this, but I heard somebody once talk about the idea that there legitimately was less shell shock, because they called it that for a while, and then now we call it PTSD a lot of times, of American soldiers coming back from World War I and World War II. Now, there was definitely a silent generation who struggled internally, and you see that like the 1950s in America is supposed to be like this lovely time where everything was wonderful, right?
Yeah.
The truth is there were a lot of men who were coming back from the war who bottled it all up inside, and then they were drinking too much, and they were abusive to their families and things like that. That's not a secret, right? It's kind of an open secret now in the U.S. that's true. But even that was at a much lower rate than you would be led to expect based on the rates of suicide and PTSD and depression and things among veterans today. And I'm not an expert on these things, obviously, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like, based on what we observe in military members today, there should have been way more problems among soldiers coming back from World War I and World War II. And I've heard a couple of different really smart people, talk about the idea that these men weren't in war one day and at home the next, right? Yeah. They're in war together. They and their buddies all experience similar things. And then when the war is over, they're in occupation force for a couple of months, sometimes even a couple of years. And then they get on a ship together and they sail for a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, back to the U.S. And then they get back to the U.S. and they're not discharged right away. They train up another group of soldiers, and it takes a while for them to muster out. So from the time their battlefield experiences end, which they're already sharing all those burdens together, right? Yeah. But from the time their battlefield experiences end until the time that they're actually leaving their units and leaving the army and going home is months, sometimes years, where they're still in close contact with one another and they're still sharing those burdens and those challenges, right? Yeah. And that meant, like, long term, what that meant was a lot of those guys, their big time issues that we would expect them to have were diminished because they're able to share those kinds of things, right? Okay, yeah. Isn't the same thing true about just like culture in general? Like, we're supposed to have, like, one of the reasons why God gave us other people is so that we can share what it's like to be humans. Yeah. Right? One of the blessings of having family, one of the blessings of having, the families that we create, like a seminary culture and things like that, one of the blessings of those things is that we get to share those burdens with each other. Yeah. That one of the blessings of having a church community is that, like, maybe there is something insufficient in your life, and so the Lord provides somebody you can talk to do a little mothering. For me, He's provided some wonderful men who just spoken into my life in ways that I didn't expect. And they're not the men I would have picked for it either, right? Like some of the guys that I worked with when I was a teacher, they like administrators that wouldn't have been the ones that I would pick to still have influence on me now 10 years later. Yeah. They're still a wonderful blessing, and they still check in on me, and we have those conversations. I think it's a good thing to have therapists, and I'm all in for people that really need it, getting the help that they need. And I think Americans in particular, and probably people across the Western world, are ill-equipped to deal with the challenging things that life has to hold, especially people that don't have Jesus. Yeah. At the same time, relationships are, again, the organ with which God gave us to deal with these things, right? And that's why we need friends. That's why we need spouses. That's why we're supposed to have families, right? So that we can deal with these things together. Yeah. For me, it was really helpful to have, like, over Christmas, 2 weeks, nearly 24/7, except the time for the rest in the night. But otherwise, yeah, just to hang out with this family and to have an open-minded and welcoming family, which is asking questions, and over 2 weeks, so much time together, they get to know you very well, and so it
really helped me to open up, to speak about problems. It also, one factor was their children are grown up right now, so they don't have to care about little children, which makes it often difficult. In Germany, I didn't really have, how do you call them, people who are in the same age?
Peers.
Yes. They are missing in my congregation. In the whole church body, yes, there were some, and yeah, like I said, we met often, but somehow they were not directly at the same place. I also didn't have a too close connection, I would say, to them. Then I dealt a lot with families which have little children, where it is hard to find time to speak. And yeah, like I said, 7 hours in a row to speak with somebody. This needs some special circumstances, and so I'm very glad about this opportunity. And so now I'm very glad to experience what good sharing is. It's amazing to see how things work together. I received a book about conversations from a fellow student in fall. It's more about just starting good conversations with fellow people to bring them in a natural way, God's love. And one big thing was curiosity. And then I was on a mission trip, and the counselor or the leader of the group, he also just was a communicative person, or he was intending to have good conversations, so he was also working with his communication. And there's the same thing, just being curious. And I recognized, well, that's the thing I'm somehow struggled in the past with. I can't ask questions. I don't have questions in my mind, but maybe there were some issues in the background which held me back. I'm very happy to work on that with this host now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
What if you were going to pick one thing, Benni, that just like lights up your world, besides Jesus? Jesus is the answer and should be the answer, right?
Yes.
If you're going to pick one other thing, what would you pick?
Music.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought about it because, well, there were times in my life where I was playing music, and I kind of, when I have a bad day, I try to fix that with music, and this doesn't really work. So, music is a great blessing, and I realize it right now, where I'm often tempted to sing less because, well, I sing a lot in services and in the devotion every day, and and in choir. I'm in choir too, so there are possibilities to sing, but I don't do it often for my own right now. But when I'm doing, I'm realizing, yes, it makes the world bright. Music makes the world bright, especially when the content is right. If I would add another thing, it's just sunshine.
Sunshine.
I like bright weather. So sitting here in a dark room is not my place where I would spend my day when I have the freedom to choose where I am.
And it's one of our rare sunny days in winter, so we gotta get you out of here and get some sunshine. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so you experienced two things this year. Well, you're about to. Are you planning on watching the Super Bowl?
I'm planning to go to one of the professors and spend time with their families.
Okay.
They are watching Super Bowl. I won't spend there the whole time because there's.
Well, it's something you should experience. It's but you also you saw an American election.
Yes.
You lived through that, and now it's Super Bowl Sunday. You're going to see your very first Super Bowl.
Yeah. How often is Super Bowl?
Every year.
Every year.
Every year. Yep. And it's a big deal every year. Yeah. Yeah. It is the biggest sporting event in the United States every single year.
Oh, nice.
So, and they do fun commercials and all kinds of stuff. And the game's a little bit like the actual game isn't longer, but they do more commercials and they have special entertainment at halftime and all kinds of stuff. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's like our version of the World Cup. You guys all get excited about the World Cup. We get excited about Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes.
So it'll be good. What were your impressions on the like I said, you witnessed the American election cycle.
Yes.
What was that like?
I don't got a lot of insight in the process, how it works, the elections. Some students try to explain it to me. I think I didn't really understand it right now. But one big thing which you can't oversee is or which you can't ignore is the advertisement.
Yes,
everywhere. A small thing is that people are putting their favorite party in the garden, like on a sign, and then showing their tendency in the garden, but much more. I'm not a guy who is watching TV, but I have a lot of people who are watching here football, for example, and how many political advertisement was in the breaks. It is much. And well, that's the thing. You in Germany, political advertisement on the TV, I'm right now not sure if it's allowed or if it, there is something in me who is saying it isn't allowed on TV, but I won't say it for granted. But what is very different is there are really bad accusations in the advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a thing that is by law impossible in Germany. There is one party which sometimes make fun of other party, but they are more like a fun party. But otherwise, you are not allowed to make a bad picture on the other political party in your political advertisement. And it happens often enough in like political speeches in the parliament that people are getting more confrontational, but also there are like restrictions, and if people are getting too aggressive, then I'm not sure what the punishment is for that. But to see it here in the US, that people are telling me you can't really believe anything of this advertisement. It is just making the other person bad, and it could be totally made up. That shocked me in a way, yeah. Not that I said I couldn't breathe when I heard that, but it really let me think. And I'm very thankful for the laws in Germany which don't allow that.
Yeah, free speech is a wonderful thing, but there's ups and downs. There's positives and negatives to everything.
Yeah,
right? And if we're gonna, I am a free speech supporter, right?
Yeah,
I think you should be able to say what you want to say, but that also means you should have the freedom to be an idiot. And we have a lot of people being free to be idiots.
Yeah, what I saw in the past week somewhere was a video clip of somebody in Germany who was also saying something political at a demonstration, and there was like an anti-demonstration right next to them, and so he was very open with his speech too. But when the artist started singing or something like that, he said, "Well, sing louder. We have like freedom of speech, so you can do that." So I like this idea, but I definitely also like, in a way, the eighth commandment where it says you should not ruin the reputation of somebody else.
I agree wholeheartedly.
If this could be somehow be regulated a little bit with laws, I'm just thankful for that. Not that it makes the world a better place, but it stops really bad false accusations.
Yeah, and it's a difference in culture, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
We're not going to agree on this, probably. We don't need to. But like I said, and this is obviously different growing up as an American.
Yeah.
you like stay out of my church. Don't tell me what I can say, can and can't say in my church. You have no business telling me any of that. But that also then means that there's a trade-off, right? Like I can say what I need to say and what I want to say. I have the freedom to speak the truth, but that also means that the people around me also have the freedom to say what they want to say and to speak their truth, right? Even if it isn't the capital T truth. And yeah, those things always come with. It was striking to me. It's interesting. You were talking about like the idea of we had to get permission to teach our students, what we believe in our church, right?
Yeah, or to get them out of school the school system. Yeah,
right. And that is it's a basic right in the U.S. Like if in order for our students, so like we have choice schools, right, where the government is paying like Lutherans even to teach public school essentially, right, at our church schools. But those kids have the right to not be in religion class if they don't want to. Now, most of them still go to religion class anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
But they have the right to not be there, and it's just interesting because it's kind of the opposite, right? You guys are fighting for the right to stay, and American kids have the right to leave, which is interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. All right, we got about 3 minutes left, Benny.
3 minutes.
What do you have to say to the people?
What do I have to say?
Let me rephrase that differently, Benny. You are studying to be a minister of the gospel in a place where there are plenty of Christians, but not a lot of Christians that are holding on to the truth the way that we would hope, right? Or the way we want. You've spent quite a bit of time in the U.S. where we'd say the similar thing, just on a different scale, right? You spent a year now surrounded by brothers who are preparing for ministry and experience what you really hadn't had before.
Yeah.
And soon you're going to leave us and you're going to go back over there, and you're going to be a tremendous blessing to your church body there. But we won't have these kinds of interactions in the same way because you won't be here anymore.
Yes.
So knowing that this is going to go down the internet and we'll be able to listen back to what Benny has to say, what do you say before you go?
Probably just thank you for this rich experience. This year wouldn't be possible without any support. I got support just to study here as an international student. The seminary is paying for the tuition. For the room and board on the campus here, I got support from the WAS Mission Europe team. Thank you for that. For coming over here, I got the support for the flight forth and back. I got support from the friends of the seminary in Germany and a lot of other people who are supporting me somehow privately, especially for the prayers. Thank you for that. And the biggest encouragement I want to give to everyone, search for a confessional Lutheran church, check out the teaching and think about it. And if there's no Lutheran church around, just read the Bible and read it again and again, and look for people who help you grow in God's word, because it is the truth which leads us to heaven, because God himself is working through that.
Wonderful. Well, Benny, it's been a blessing to have you on. Love having you here at the seminary. Love being your classmate. It's an absolute joy. Thanks for being on the show. Blessings, brother.
Thank you for being here. For me, it's just joy also to tell a little bit.
Awesome. Well,
yes.
Have a good one, Benny. Appreciate
God's
it.
blessing.